Hi there, it's Louise here of Timeless Craft Mama, and today I'm sharing a scrapbook layout process video with you for Scrapbook Boutique, inspired by their April mood board. My layout I've titled Love This, and I really have to be honest, I did find this a challenge. With a house full of boys, I didn't think I'd have a lot of pink to work with. So what I've done is gone through and picked out some of the pinks from my stash. And the first part is to use this Cocoa Vanilla Studio Free Spirit paper. And I'm simply going to take some white gesso and just spread that all over the page. Now the main reason for this is because I'm doing a mixed media layout today, and I also wanted to dull down some of those other colours. I knew I was going to be adding quite a few layers, so I just really wanted to mute that background and allow the extra medias that I'm going to add to shine through. So the first one is to take a stencil and just lightly spritz on some spray mist, and then I'm just, you'll see, patting some of that extra colour off. Not only does that speed up the drying process, but it also will help mute that colour, because the pink that I had was quite bright, but the particular colours of the mood board were quite muted, so I really didn't want too much pink. It could be a little bit dark if you wanted to go that way, because we are going to put some other layers over the top, but for me personally I wanted a nice light shade of pink on that particular page. So I'm now taking another stencil and I'm just sponging some white acrylic paint through that stencil, just again adding some more detail to this page. Now in the final product a lot of this does get covered up, but in preparing a mixed media layout, what you find is that sometimes you will build layers and you will pop things on a page, and sometimes you do cover it up and sometimes a small amount of it shows through. When I create mixed media, I don't particularly plan anything. I just keep creating layers until I become happy with the look of the page. So the next layer is some white embossing powder, and I've just applied that with a stamp and then pop the powder over the top and heat set that. Then I'm going to sprinkle some more of the pink colour on there, and it's going to be dark, so I'm going to let that dry naturally. Next layer is this circle stencil, and I'm just colouring in those circles with a gelato. Again, just messy, and then hand circling some areas on this particular page, because I know I am going to cover some of this up. Okay, it doesn't have to be perfect. For me, this is how I like my mixed media to look. So I build layers with an idea in mind of where I'm going to pop my photo, and then go ahead and just keep building until I'm happy. So I've also put some black stamping on there as well. And that's just to help sort of to make some of that colour pop a little bit. If I kept building pinks and whites and shades of pink and some more white, you'd sort of just lose some of the effect. So the little bits of black stamping just help to bring all that elements in together. So I've used the same paper on the back of this photo, so I've just mounted it on the exact same piece of paper that I've built this background on, and I'm going to take some cheesecloth now and use that in my background. I did cut a little bit too much off, so I've just trimmed that cheesecloth, and I'm simply just breaking up some of the edges and again giving some more texture and some more interest to this particular page. I am also going to use the Tim Holtz Distress Edger, and I actually don't use this as much as I probably should because it is quite effective, and I knew straight away when I was thinking about doing a mixed media layout to show you what my process was for mixed media. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, and really the purpose of mixed media is not to be right or wrong. It's about just creating layers on a page, using different elements, different products. So, to me, anything that incorporates sort of, more than 2 or 3 different media elements on a page is classified as mixed media. And, people might disagree with me, they might agree. What I want to do is I want to inspire scrapbookers to have a play with different elements. You don't have to know all of what they do. The way that I learnt was watching process videos. I hopped online and I watched what other scrapbookers are doing, and if I could take one technique out of each video and use that in creating what I like on a scrapbook page, then that person's video has achieved its purpose. So for me, I wanted to share with you some of the techniques that I like to use in order to get a finished page. So again, on that background, I'm just taking some different elements, some washi tape, some strips of paper from that collection, again, a stencil, and this time some texture paste through that stencil, adding interest again, adding small touches. The idea for me is, you're not necessarily going to see everything because I'm going to cover it up with some cheesecloth and then I'm going to put a photo on there as well. But I really just like to build these layers to provide interest on the page. The next step is some white splatters, and again, this just helps to sort of bring all of those little parts that are not quite working together. You want to make sure that the background of your layout suits the page. It's almost like taking a piece of paper and designing your own background. So once I'm happy with how that background is looking, I'm going to go ahead and pop the cheesecloth down and also the photo. So once that's all positioned, I take my matte gel, and this is the way I like to attach my cheesecloth because matte gel dries clear and it's got really good sticking properties. So I'm just taking a spatula and spreading that out around the page. Now, because of the lightness of this particular mood board, I knew that I was going to mount it on a piece of white cardstock to go into the album. Not only does that help to sort of level out that page that you've put all the mixed media on, but it does just give it a nice little soft touch. So what I'm doing now is I'm going through and I'm picking out some elements that I'm going to pop onto this page. So again, I'm using Cocoa Vanilla Studio products, some of the wood veneers and some of the die cuts as well. So just picking out a couple of these pinker elements. And again, I hadn't even opened this packet in the past because, it wasn't something that I would specifically put on any of my boy layouts. So this was quite fun for me. I actually got to play with lots of little pink elements and to actually make a fun page that, was something for me. Because as much as I scrapbook pictures of myself, I would generally not put pink on a page. So this mood board was a real challenge for me, but I'm really pleased with the layout and I'm quite happy with the result of this, what I would call a pink challenge for me. So cotton is another way to add lots of interest and texture to a page. So you'll see that I've made some circles out of some of mine, and then I've just spread some of it around in a really individual way. So once I'm happy with the positioning of that, I'm going to go ahead and stick my photo down and just make sure that some of that cheesecloth and that cotton is poking out of the side. Now once that's ready to go, I'm taking this gelato and all I'm doing is colouring in that wood veneer and then spreading the colour out with my fingers. Right? It didn't need any pre-prepping, it didn't need any gesso or anything attached to it. It just simply, the gelato sticks to it quite well and really gives it a nice pale pink colour, which is exactly what I wanted for this particular page. So all I'm doing now that I've built my background is moving some of these elements around, and because this is quite a feminine page, I have gone with sort of lots of butterflies and flowers, and again part of that is because I'm really unlikely to use those on a boy's page, but they work quite well for this particular page because it's very feminine. It is a picture of me, and it's a picture of the only other female in our household, which is Sally, the part-Siamese cat. So she tends to come and sit with me in the afternoons and have a bit of a cuddle. So I had this picture that I'd snapped of us together, and felt it was a good memory to have because especially on this particular layout where we're talking about lots of pink colours, it's not going to feature prominently in my album, the colour pink, so I'm certainly happy to have something a little bit different. So I'm simply going to just fiddle around, and as I become happy with some of these elements, I'm actually gluing them down. What you'll see with me is that sometimes I'll place an element and then move it and play around, and occasionally if I can't get things to work, I'll actually switch the camera off and I'll fiddle around with a few things, and then I'll come back to it, or if I'm distracted or busy, I'll walk away and I'll come back to it in a couple of minutes or however long I happen to be distracted for, and have a look at a layout with fresh eyes. If I can't get it to do what I want it to do, then taking a break is certainly something that I choose to do. Some people are the type of scrappers where they can just sit down and they'll have a layout done in an hour. I can't scrap like that. I find that my thought process dissipates the longer I sit there. So I actually scrap better if I tend to, get 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. I'll sit down, plan a video, I'll pull some items out of my stash, then I'll build a background, I'll go away. I might come back the next night and start to layer that top part of the page together, so the photo and the embellishments and the journaling. So, everybody does something different, and that's the benefit of a process video. You get to see my process and listen to me warble on about how I scrapbook. But for me, I find it quite interesting. So, if you don't want to listen to me warble, that's fine. There's a wonderful button called the mute button, so feel free to use it if you'd just like to watch, because I have to tell you too, sometimes I will quite often watch a process video with the mute button turned on because, I might be watching something on TV in the background, and sometimes I just want to watch what the scrapbooker is doing, how they're putting out their elements, and if I really want to know what they're talking about, I certainly can rewind it and listen to the technique that they're using. So I'm pretty much done with the majority of the elements on this page. I'm going to go ahead and add my journaling in the bottom right hand corner. That wasn't actually anything that I'd planned. As I was building this background, I realized that I had a lot more of the detail up in that sort of top left and middle region of the page, and this bottom section was quite plain, and aesthetically when I looked at it, it just wasn't working for me. So it was pretty fluky really that was just a perfect spot to put my journaling. I'm simply going to add a couple of the stickers from the paper pack collection so that it is the final touches of my layout. Now, down in that bottom left-hand corner cluster there, that coconut bloom from Kaiser Craft was just not working for me in that white colour, so I did go ahead and add some of that pink mist that I used earlier. It's probably a little darker than I wanted it to be, but in the end it needed to be pink. It wasn't working as white, so just to add a little touch of sparkle, I'm also taking some Crystalina glitz there and just spreading that around all over the page. So I'm all finished with this particular layout. I really hope you enjoyed that mixed media layout from me. I hope you'll subscribe and don't forget to check out Scrapbook Boutique. Thanks so much.